Your authentic self is not going to come through if you are always trying to be someone you're not. Just be you. Just show up as you. And then be willing to step into the discomfort of being you and of your true authentic self being rejected, because you're not going to be for everybody. I am not for everybody. We are not for everybody, but we are for somebody. Sometimes it's just hard to start. The words, what do I say first? What comes out of my mouth first? What do I need to be talking about? What is going to be the most impactful? How do I make sure that people get a good takeaway from my video, from my talk, from my course, from my insert, whatever? We are always focused on what other people are getting or what they're not getting. And then we start to lose track of who we are in that process, who we are and who we want to show up as and what we want to articulate. So then when somebody in the audience starts to maybe look a little tired or bored, we think, how can I make them happier? Or how can I make them more engaged? And we lose track of our natural state, this natural ability to have our voice flow through us. For me, for a really long time, I was always showing up in these different spaces as what I thought other people would want, what I thought they needed or wanted to hear. And so I was morphing myself and I was transmuting my voice into what I thought was going to be the most effective. Now, that doesn't get us very far because, one, it takes us away from our natural ability to be the channel for what comes through us, right? To be that open, expansive space of what we know. And then we're just trying to perform for other people. We're trying to give them what we think that they want. And then there's a separation between us and them. There's a separation between our natural ability and our voices and what we can give to them. So I wanted so badly to be somebody who could be heard because I wasn't hearing myself. I was rejecting myself. So what was happening was there were people that really loved it. And then there was also people who just didn't connect to it. And that's going to be true even when you're sharing your authentic voice. But what happened was, since I wasn't being authentically me, I doubted it. And I thought, well, I can be better. I can be different and I can be all these different things. And so I was then minimizing myself. I was then doubting myself. I was then trying to once again shift and morph into being what other people wanted instead of just showing up as me. And I was rejecting a lot of pieces of myself because I would show up, of course, to be smart, to be felt, to be heard, to be these things. And what was really happening was I was rejecting all of that within myself. I was not accepting who I was, and I wasn't in true trust with what I can offer. And so naturally, my voice got lost along the way. It led me down paths that weren't right for me, weren't supportive for me, were not the outcome that I wanted to have in my life. I would get into spaces and places that, like, this isn't where I want to be. These aren't the people I want to be around. So I was changing who I was for people that were not going in the direction I wanted to go. I was taking feedback from people who weren't doing the things that I was already doing. I was changing who I was for people who aren't even looking at themselves. They don't even know who they are. So I had to ask myself, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I seeking all of this external validation? And why am I continuing to do it at the expense of myself? What can I change? What can be different? What would this look like if I showed up as me without caring if somebody else got something out of it? And I just showed up as the expression of myself. Now, this gets a little difficult because you're like, but Kayla, you're running a business. I'm running a business. I'm doing a keynote. I'm doing this. I'm building a course. There is an outcome. Yes, we can have a direction. But the more we focus on what someone is or isn't getting out of what we're saying, the less present we are with our voice and our message. So we have to lean into trust. It wasn't for me. For me, it wasn't until I started to lean into trust for myself and not overthinking, what am I going to say? Those first words out of your mouth are always the hardest in a video, in a talk. They're always the hardest because it's a starting point, and starting points are always difficult. So what I like to do is I like to have an idea. I like to have a starter. Like, this is how I want to start off this video, or this is how I want to start off, or this is the outcome that I want. This is where I want people, this is the takeaway I want them to have. So then how can I create that? How do I start it off in a way that leads me in the direction? And then wherever it takes us, it takes us. But you have to trust in your ability to get there. You don't need to lean so heavily on scripts. You don't need to lean onto the voices of other people because people will know that. People aren't going to feel you, your energy, your authentic self is not going to come through if you are always trying to be someone you're not. If you're trying to be someone who you think is more successful, or you're trying to be the person that you want that person to think that you are, just be you. Just show up as you. And then be willing to step into the discomfort of being you and of your true authentic self being rejected, because you're not going to be for everybody. I am not for everybody. We are not for everybody, but we are for somebody. And we're for a lot of somebodies. And for those people to find us and for those people to connect with our voice, we have to be willing to step into it. We have to be willing to step into who we are and stop blocking ourselves and stop holding ourselves back and stop presenting ourselves with all these expectations of who we think we need to be accepted by everyone else. This is the time that we go all in on our authentic selves, because if you want your voice to be heard, if you want it to stand out, you cannot sound like the person next to you. You have to sound like you. And you are the only person who has lived your life. You're the only person with your life experience. You're the only person with your unique expression and energy. And the more you start to accept that, and the more you start to lean into that, and the more you start to allow the discomfort of showing up as you, the more people will be attracted to you, the more they will show up, the more you'll sell out your courses, the more that they'll be watching you on your videos, the more that they'll be attending your lives and your workshops and all these other things that you're trying to create. The more they buy from you because they feel you, because you are you. You're not a different version that you think that they want you to be. Just trust in your ability to be you and to be seen and to be visible. So you have to do that work. So that sounds great and wonderful. And it's like, but how? I'm scared to be me. I don't know who the real me is. And we just start to listen for these cues of, oh, that felt right. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I don't really care if that person accepts me or not, because I'm so strong in my message that I want my message out there. And I know, and I'm secure enough to know that it's going to be rejected, because anything worthwhile will be rejected. There will be resistance on your message and there will be acceptance. So first you have to accept yourself. You have to accept and get clear in your message. This is the outcome I want. This is what I want to create. This is the life that I'm building and I want people to step into and build. And I am secure in that. So then I'm so strong in my message that all of these hits from the outside, from people who don't like it, people who push back, people who have resistance, people who don't agree, they don't matter. It's just a thank you and move on, because you're strong in yourself. But if you're doubting in your head and you don't trust yourself and you're doubting yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm an imposter, I'm all of these other stories that we tell ourselves, then as soon as somebody says, oh, that sucked, that was terrible, you're going to say, I knew it. That was terrible. I am not good. I shouldn't be doing that. So we have to lean into this version of us who shows up in trust for ourselves and knowing maybe I didn't articulate that message as clearly as I wanted to. So maybe there was a little bit of confusion. Maybe it was received in a way that was not intended. How can I refine it in the future? And not go into this spiral and this self-deprecating thought of I'm not good enough, or I'm an imposter, or I don't know what I'm doing. No, you're not going to know what you're doing until you step into it, until you lean into that discomfort, until you allow your voice to come up and you say, that's it. That was my voice. That resonated with me and the people I'm looking to resonate with. Your energy here has to change for someone to be attracted to it. So those first words are the hardest. That's all you need to know. I just need to start. I just need to start leaning into myself and my voice, and whatever comes out is pure perfection because I trust myself and I can allow myself to be seen and visible because I'm not doubting who I am. I'm not beating myself up and I'm not criticizing myself. I'm not judging myself. So if somebody else comes in and judges me, then I don't have to adopt that as my own. So just be willing to look and explore. Be willing to see yourself a little bit differently. Be willing to trust yourself. Be willing to step into versions of you that's uncomfortable so you can put your message out there, so you can be seen, so you can be heard, so you can experience what you want to experience. And it all comes back to not doubting your ability. Get stronger in that. Understand why you don't like yourself, why you criticize yourself. See what you're gaining from that. Do that deep work that I talk about so much here. It's not something we can skirt around. The most confident people on those stages are not people who have not doubted themselves. So the ones that have doubted themselves understood that doubt and did it anyway. We're stepping into a brave version of you. We're stepping into the version that gets seen and heard and visible because you are willing. You're taking the steps. You're having the courage. So I hope this motivates you. I hope it gives you something to look at within you, to explore, to not judge, to not criticize, so you can actually step into your voice, so you can start to trust yourself a little bit more. And I would love to hear, what are your big visibility goals for 2025? Where do you want to go? Do you want to be on more podcasts? Do you want to be speaking on a stage? Do you want to have your own course? Do you want to just be showing up on social media? Where do you want to go? And how is being visible going to help you in your business?